Mike, thanks so much for spending a little time with us here today. And before we talk about your athletic brace and what that does and how you came about making that brace, I want to get a little background on you and how you got into athletic training. And you're a native of South Dakota, right? But, in high school, it looked like you started doing this. What was it about athletic training, about the medical side of things in sports that you wanted to be involved with?
Yeah. Well, I actually started at a small college in South Dakota, and we had a family ranch. I worked on the ranch for a while, and I kind of decided I wanted to do something different. So I wanted to go to school, and I was actually going to be a teacher, and kind of got involved with one of my first classes at a small college in South Dakota that I was at. Was being taught by the athletic trainer at that school, and we kind of made a connection my first year there, and it didn't take long, and I was kind of hooked. And that was back in 1983, I think, is when that was. So I kind of don't like the sound of it being that long ago, but that's kind of where it started. And then I kind of matriculated to a school in Missouri to get to be able to get in the curriculum that had a athletic training program. It was Southwest Missouri State at the time, Missouri State now. And then, so I was there for a few years, and I went up to Western Michigan and got my master's degree in sports medicine. And then 1990, I took an internship, a 10-month internship at Notre Dame that turned into a full-time gig the next year. And next thing you know, you wake up and it's been 35 years. So it's been quite a ride, but it's been really, really an awesome one.
Yeah, I think when people like myself, maybe you as well, you realize you're not going to play sports professionally, but there's other ways to be around sports, around athletics. For me, broadcasting, for you, athletic training. What was it about the athletic training side of things that really, appealed to you?
Well, I like sports, and I knew that when I went to school, I kind of had an ambition to maybe get into some sort of a coaching situation, and then I learned, about athletic training and the service-oriented profession that was, and dealing with the medical aspect of things just kind of really, really struck with me, and that's kind of where the passion started and where it's kind of continued.
Like you said, Notre Dame full-time since 1991. What was it like starting off there? And again, then you're working with the football team, the history of that program. What was it like to be on the inside of it? And it had still on the inside of it now?
Well, it's a job, and there's a lot of moving parts. And at the end of the day, my job is to take care of the student athletes. And that's, like I said, there's been quite a change in the landscape of that since 1991. But at the end of the day, my job is to serve the student athletes as best I can and provide them the most quality health care in terms of, helping them perform to the level they want to, keeping them healthy, and, assuring that they're going to come through their sports career in good health as much as we can and not have long-term issues after that.
Before we talk about your brace, obviously other technologies have changed through the years since 1991 when you started there. What else has made your job easier and made it maybe better for the student athletes to stay healthier and stay, again, in their field of play?
Yeah, that's a pretty, I don't know if we have nearly enough time to go into that in depth, but, from speaking from kind of the medical side of things, just, the evolution of diagnostic equipment, the surgical techniques, learning how to rehab and treat things, in a much more aggressive but safe manner. It's the days of, somebody has an injury and you put them in a cast for 6 weeks. That doesn't happen very often anymore. And we've learned that we can navigate those injuries in a little bit more functional way. And, it's better for everybody in the long run. So, it's really been a lot of moving parts. We've also evolved into a lot of different, monitoring of their performance, and there's tons of metrics that we use with that every day, trying to make sure these guys are on the right path and they're not setting themselves up for injuries. And again, like I said, we could have conversations all day about what that looks like, but, just, preparing the athletes, trying to avoid injuries as much as possible. And that involves everything from their diet to their sleep, to their training methods, to their healthcare needs. It's pretty widespread, but it's been a fun evolution. my specific job, I stay in my lane pretty much and take care of, the injuries as they come. But we work as a big team at Notre Dame, with the strength and conditioning and the dietitians and the sports psych people and the performance team. So it's a group effort to make sure that the guys are on the right path.
We talked to a lot of athletes that maybe played in the 70s, 80s, even the early 90s, and hey, it was a badge of courage to play through pain, right?
Yeah.
Now we kind of know better. Is that part of kind of what you do to educate these student athletes and say, listen, if you're hurt, let us know about it?
Well, obviously, yeah, communication is the key there. And, we're going to do what's best for the student athlete, both short term and long term. And hopefully that, can help him accomplish their goals in terms of getting back playing but also not having problems down the road, later in life. So, but it's like I said, it's an ongoing situation to make sure those guys are staying healthy.
Well, I don't know if you thought you were going to be an inventor when you took this job, but you did come up with the Tayco athletic brace. What stemmed from that? Why did this come about? And now something that we're seeing in the NFL, we're seeing in other college programs use.
Well, it's interesting. I mean, ankle injuries is one of our staple injuries that we see an awful lot of, especially with football. And we needed something a little bit better, I thought. And there's been a lot of apparatuses and taping and those type of metrics to either prevent an ankle injury or treat an ankle injury to return to play. And there's ankle braces have been around since the late 70s, and some of them served their purpose pretty well, some of them not so much, but all of those had something in common, and that was that you had to put the brace on your ankle and then put your foot in an ankle into a shoe with this brace on. And I was never really super comfortable with that, just because by the time you did that, you completely, you might have to go to a size bigger shoe, or you completely compromise the structure and integrity of the shoe by wedging this braced ankle into this shoe. And it was uncomfortable, and there was, there's a lot of negative factors that went into that. So, my thought was, listen, if we can do something that, we can put over the shoe that will give equal or superior support, comfort, and function, then that was kind of my genesis on starting that project. And, my thought process was, if we can stabilize the ankle in the two major ways that you normally hurt your ankle, which is kind of rolling it in or rolling it out. But even more than that is to provide a little support in the heel or in the hind foot, and also in the midfoot. And that was kind of the general concept that I started with. And back in late, it was probably 2009, 2010 is kind of when I started putting some ideas to paper, and visiting with the local orthotist here in town to do a couple mock-ups and some demos. And we tried couple different things, and we found one that we kind of liked. And, kind of for a few years, it was just kind of Notre Dame's thing that, athletic trainers are pretty good at, fabricating braces and splints for athletes to function and do their jobs. And this was just kind of another extension of that mindset. And so it was kind of just Notre Dame's little secret for a while. And we'd used it in practice predominantly just with football. And some guys were functioning with it pretty well. And it was, giving us some good feedback. Players were receptive to it and liked the support that it did. And then eventually kind of kept growing. And then, with the idea that, hey, maybe I'm onto something here that might benefit, more than just the people here, the athletes here at Notre Dame. And so I think it was in probably 2009, somewhere in there, was when I kind of started the process. But then in 2000, let's see, what year was it? Probably 2015, I think, is we started kind of a patent process. And again, that's not something I could have done by myself. And I got a lot of credit has to go to the University of Notre Dame for being willing to help support that idea. The university's got a great department that does a lot of these type things of help stimulate ideas and stimulate patents. Creating advanced technologies in a multitude of different venues. And I'm grateful that they were, willing to take on something kind of as simplistic as an ankle brace, because most of the stuff they were dealing with was a little bit higher level thinking than my ankle brace was. They were curing cancers and, solving all kinds of computer software issues. And so I'm really grateful that they took the initiative to be willing to, help me with this project. And within about a year, we had a provisional patent. And then from there, we had was kind of just like, so what happens now? And it just so happened that one of our team orthopedic surgeons, Dr. Fred Furlick, who'd been with the university for a long time, retired and stepped away from his practice and retired from being one of our team physicians. And he was in the market. He says, I want to do something else. I want to do a startup company, something in the healthcare field. And it was probably within a couple of weeks that he approached the university, and the university said, hey, well, do you know Mike Bean? And he says, oh yeah, I know him. And he called me up and we had lunch the next day. And I tell you, the rest is history. Fred's vision was much, much broader than mine was. And that's kind of really where the stimulus to take this to new levels really began. And so a lot of credit goes to Fred Furlick with that. So it's been a fun ride.
Was there one athlete that kind of, kept having those ankle injuries that kind of got this started, that idea of how can I help this one person, or was it just a general thing?
Well, we had a lot of guys that had used it, and there was one kind of watershed moment in a game. I don't recall the year, but it was an offensive lineman who sprained his ankle in a game. Not terribly bad. Came off. Our doctors evaluated him. We thought it's if you can function, it's safe to play. So we did the whole thing. We took him apart, taped him, put the shoe back on, and then just taped over the shoe, which is called spatting, which is kind of you see a lot of that in football. And he said, okay, I'll give it a try. And so he goes out the next series, and it was a short series. He comes off. He says, man, I can't push off. He says, it's not even, it feels really weak. So I said, well, listen, we've got this one other option. We can try it. And he said, let's do it. He says, I want to try it. So put the Tayco brace on him, taped it on him kind of over the shoe like we normally apply them. And he went out for the next series, played a long series, came off, and I said, hey, how you doing? He goes, man, this is amazing. He says, I can post on my pass sets. I can drive block now without much problem. And I said, okay, well, go play and have fun. So that was kind of the watershed moment where I thought maybe we were really, had something that might really be beneficial to, at the time it was just a football brace. And for a lot of years, that's kind of what it was. So
when you have Notre Dame as, your test subject, did it help open up some doors and maybe get other teams in the NFL involved as well to want to start using this brace?
I don't know if I'd like to think so, but I don't know that, the Notre Dame brand, really pushed it. I think it was a lot of just, with Fred's desire and innovations and passion, we started kind of making some of the braces, and we started promoting it to these athletic programs. And, again, athletic trainers are pretty intrigued and always looking for a better brace. And so we were able to get it into some places, and pretty soon we start seeing the brace, show up on college teams here and there. And, that's just continued to grow. I think at last count, we've got probably close to 100 college NFL or college teams that are using it. A lot of the NFL teams are using it, at least to some degree. But again, and that's still just in the football realm. The brace itself has really grown exponentially just from that one piece. So, a lot of schools, including Notre Dame, a lot of schools are using it as a recovery appliance as well. So, instead of having to put somebody in a big cam walking boot to help them recover, we found that if you put them in the Tayco brace as a recovery appliance, they do really well. In fact, they do better than wear a walking boot in a lot of cases. So, and there's a lot of reasons for that, but like I said, it's a supportive brace. It allows for some joint motion, which is protected motion is really good when you're coming back from an injury. and it allows you to kind of have a normal gait pattern. One of the drawbacks to wearing a walking boot is, it alters your gait pattern by elevating one of your hips, the one that you're wearing the boot. And, it's not uncommon to have somebody come in and say, well, my ankle's feeling better, but my hip and my low back are killing me. So, again, we can avoid that whole scenario with this brace because it just goes right over your own shoe. It doesn't compromise. A lot of athletes now, a lot of people are wearing custom orthotics, for their feet structure and support. This doesn't compromise that whatsoever, so you can still wear that. It's a lower profile. Patients like it. It's easy to use, and like I said, it's more functional than a walking boot. So yeah, it's kind of growing in the athletic venue a little bit more each year, and it's not just in football. We've got baseball players, softball players, lacrosse players using it. Some other sports are using it in a limited basis. Soccer players are really finicky about what they put on their feet. So they're not going to probably play in it, but they can go back and go through some of their return to play activities and get out and move around and a little bit safer than, if they didn't have the brace on. So,
was there any pushback like from officials because it is something that's outside and not, a brace that's then inside the shoe? Any pushback from officials or anything like that it was going to be harmful from anybody else, a tackle or something like that?
No, none whatsoever. You see, a lot of guys wear knee braces and, elbow braces and those kind of things. It falls into that same category as a protective thing, especially on the foot and ankle. It's not nearly as concerning as, an athlete wearing a cast or something on their arm where they could use as a weapon of some sort. So we don't have to deal with that at all. So no, but there's been no issues with that whatsoever. So.
I know the name comes from your family as well. So you honored your daughters with the name of this brace.
So yeah, I was my oldest daughter is Taylor. That's where the Tay comes from. My wife is Colleen, and my youngest daughter is Courtney. So that's where the CO comes from. So thought it was kind of unique, and it seemed kind of a good catch, and it seems to have stuck pretty well, I think. So, but so. And like I said earlier, it's, the athletic market has been really good to us. That's still kind of where our basis is. But, and again, this kind of goes back to Fred Furlick, that his vision was much broader than that. And the thing that's probably most gratifying to me at this point is, it's not just an athletic brace anymore. And we've expanded into pretty much every realm and every person of every walk of life. That this brace is being able to, improve their quality of life. We have doctors that are using it post-operatively, to help people recover. People with chronic instability in their ankles for whatever reason, arthritic ankles, workers' comp patients, people who have to wear a specific boot or closed-toed shoe to work. You can't do that in a walking boot. So this allows them to wear their required shoe plus get the ankle support they need to be able to get back to work sooner. The senior citizen population has been really benefiting from it. Just years and years of wear and tear of the ankles, they can be a little bit finicky and a little bit weak and be problematic. And, it's really hard to put an elderly person in a walking boot because you're really asking for some hip and low back problems with that. So, that population has really taken to it. It's been very, very receptive to what it can do in terms of getting people to get out and move, which is what they want to do, drive a car, just getting back to a normal life. And so there's been a lot of that kind of stories that have been much more rewarding than anything that I've seen and experienced on the football field. So military is another one. We've got the military using it both as a recovery appliance as well as a kind of a protective one. So during training for the cadets, they'll wear this so they don't sprain their ankles. Excuse me. So, the diversity of which it's become over the last few years is what's by far been the most rewarding for me. And like I said, it wasn't me alone. There was a lot of people involved with it, but just to see that matriculate from something that was simply designed as something for a football player is now, a much, much bigger product.
So do you look at injuries differently now? Do you see an injury and think, well, what can I invent? What can I create that helps with this?
To a degree. Yeah. I mean, you're always looking for something to, be protective and supportive for whatever joint you're trying to protect or whatever body part you're trying to protect. And, there's always things to play with. There's a lot of hurdles to go through, and finding those magic inventions. But I'm going to keep looking, and you never know what might be next.
How can people find more about this if they're trying to find one for themselves, or if they're trying to get their orthopedist to use this on them? Give us some information how they can find that and your website that you have.
Yeah, I think the simplest thing is to go to just taycobrace.com, and that can give you a lot of the basic information what you need. It's what's applicable for. There's even insurance codes that are applicable for it now, so people can file it through their insurance. It's very user friendly, but the website would be able to give you a lot of options. Like I said, we've with this evolution into other venues, we've got more than one type of brace now. We have the athletic brace, which is what you see in the NFL players and in colleges, but we have another brace that's a little bit more geared for the general population. That's not quite as it's a little bit more supportive in terms of with some range of motion blocks, so that you can limit the motion a little bit if you need to. Doesn't need to be quite as streamlined as our athletic brace does. We've got the a military version, which is very similar to the athletic brace. So we've branched out. We've got kind of three different versions right now. And we've got some things on the blueprints and in the drawing boards right now, coming up with maybe another version or two in the next year or two, hopefully. So, we're always growing, always looking. But all that information can be on the taycobrace.com website.
Yeah, it's amazing how a need leads to an invention. You see that all the time, and certainly in this case, it's true here. You had a need of keeping those guys on the field, and the Tayco brace comes into existence here. But Mike, great story, great invention, a great thing out there for folks to learn about, know more about, and hopefully they check out your website if they have that need as well. And can't thank you enough for spending a little time with us here tonight, Mike.
Well, Mike, I appreciate you taking the time and to visit and invite me to do this. I know this is a little out of the scope of what you normally talk about on these shows, and I hope it proves beneficial to some people down the road, one way or another. But again, thanks so much for inviting me on and letting me visit about something that's been a pretty good passion of mine for a while.
Well, good stuff there. Practical use for a problem. He had the problem. He came up with the Tayco brace. Mike Bean, great guest. And a special thanks to Bill Ames from Ames Sports Literary and Publicity for helping arrange that sit down here today. As always, we thank you for watching and listening and invite you to like, to subscribe, and to share our shows. Great guests, great stories from the world of sports. For J.R. Quitman, our creator, producer, and director behind the scenes, I'm Mike Vaccaro. Thanks for watching. We'll see you next time. Another episode of In the Front Row. Have a great day, everybody.